watching the 1996 Young Reader's Choice Award book preview.
12-year-old Ellen and her 8-year-old wildly imaginative brother Corey are given a joint birthday gift, a campout in the city zoo. But the adventure turns into a night of terror when brother and sister are locked in and chased in the darkness by a dangerous escaped criminal. Ellen and Corey have to rely on courage and cunning in order to survive. Many readers were captivated by Peg Carrott's book, Terror in the Zoo. It was the winner of the 1995 Young Reader's Choice Award.
The Young Reader's Choice Award is the oldest children's choice award in the United States, and it is the only regional award chosen by children of 2 countries. Each year, students in grades 4th through 8th in Alaska, British Columbia and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book.
An award-winning playwright, Peg Carrott lives with her husband and animal friends in a Washington farmhouse. When she was a child, Carrott combined her interests in animals and writing and published a dog newspaper. Carrott loved doing research at the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle for her award-winning book, Terror at the Zoo.
Who will win in 1996? You choose the winner. All 4th through 8th graders who have read or listened to at least 2 of the nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 12 books you would like to read, here's a brief description of each.
Marion Dane Bauer grew up in a small prairie town. She knew at an early age she wanted to write, and as soon as she learned to type, she knew she would be an author. As a child, Bauer spent time writing poems for her teddy bear. Now she lives in Minnesota and teaches writing. She writes about tough issues, but also scary things like A Taste of Smoke. A 13-year-old Caitlin refuses to believe that Frank is a ghost from the past. Even though his clothes are strangely old-fashioned, she's convinced that he is an ordinary boy eager to be friends. Frank keeps turning up mysteriously until Caitlin gradually realizes that he is the ghost of a boy who died in a fire almost 100 years earlier. Is she the only one who can see him? And what does he want?
Born in Virginia, Jane Leslie Conley's first book was Raxo and the Rats of Nim, which was a sequel to her father's Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. Conley lives in Baltimore, Maryland, and says there are parts of writing she likes and other parts she doesn't like. But she feels that she has to write something every week or she will lose her overall sense of contentment. I wonder what gave her the idea for the Newbery Honor winner, Crazy Lady. Along with his friends, Vernon sometimes teases Maxine Fluter and her son Ronald. The kids all call her Crazy Lady, and she and Ronald are the neighborhood joke. But when Vernon receives less and less attention from his overworked father, circumstances bring him closer to Maxine and Ronald. Slowly he becomes aware that they are real people and discovers that he gains a lot for himself by helping them.
Susan Cooper was born in England and spent part of her childhood visiting her grandparents in Wales. They inspired her to read and write. Cooper started writing when she applied for a prize. Her son Jonathan helps her with computer talk, and she needed that to write The Boggart. The Volnick family inherits a Scottish castle, its antiques, an ancient, mischievous, invisible spirit, the Boggart. The Volnicks visit Castle Keep and unwillingly take the Boggart home with them when they return to Toronto. Family life becomes chaos as the Boggart does what Boggarts do. Furniture flies, food disappears, computers operate invisible, and on and on. The collision of modern technology and old magic brings excitement and danger nobody could have imagined.
Bartha Clements was born in Seattle, Washington. A mother of 4, she has also been a junior high teacher, a psychologist, and a counselor. Always a champion of the underdog, De Clements uses her own experiences to give kids reading encounters that may change their heads. That is what may happen to readers of The Pickle Song. 6th grader Paula wants to be friends with Suki, a new girl in the neighborhood, but Suki has a secret that gets in the way. Suki avoids Paula's questions, but Paula is determined to get to know this thin, scraggly-haired girl. However, uncovering the secret gives Paula more than she bargained for. Suki's family is in a desperate situation, and when Paula tries to help, she discovers something unexpected about friendship, sharing, responsibility, and love.
Kirkpatrick Hill is a teacher in Alaska. She lives in a 2-story log cabin filled with music, books, cats, dogs, and kids. She has 6 children. She wanted to write a realistic story about real Yukon kids, so she wrote Tough Boy and Sister and the sequel, Winter Camp. Living with Natasha, an elderly Indian neighbor, is a challenge for 11-year-old Tough Boy and his 9-year-old sister. Natasha is demanding and believes that learning to work and live in the woods is as important as reading books and going to school. When winter comes, she takes Tough Boy and sister to her winter trapping camp. Minor mistakes lead to major catastrophes in the bitter, cold weather. Relying on the old ways that Natasha has taught them, Tough Boy and sister struggle to survive in the Alaska wilderness.
Julie Johnston was born and grew up in Ontario, Canada. She has written short stories and plays and worked at a school for handicapped children. Johnston says, "What I enjoy most about writing fiction is burrowing so deeply into these characters that I am in tune with how they think and how they sound and how they see the world." You'll come to know her characters well in A Hero of Lesser Causes. Keely loves Adair, especially when it comes from her older brother Patrick. They are especially close for a brother and sister, but life changes when Patrick is stricken with polio. He's in the hospital for months, and when he comes home, he is almost completely paralyzed. Depressed, Patrick loses the will to live. The question is, can Keely help him get it back?
Annette Curtis Klaus was born in England and is now a children's librarian in Maryland. She began writing as a child and now collects books and attends science fiction conventions. A common theme for Klaus is that of outsiders and what readers can learn from them. She said she always felt like an outsider growing up. Maybe she felt like Puck, the girl in science fiction mystery, Alien Secrets. Expelled from boarding school, 12-year-old Puck is en route to the planet Aurora to rejoin her parents. The spaceship she is traveling on is carrying 6 passengers, some human, some alien. One is Hush, an alien who is returning to his home planet after years of slavery. Puck befriends Hush and discovers that he is distraught because a valuable artifact has been stolen. The unlikely pair courageously face danger and ghosts in this interstellar mystery.
Carolyn Meyer has been writing young adult novels for the past 20 years. As a teenager, she was shy but had a strong imagination and loved to write. She writes books inspired by her own life experiences. After Meyer and her husband moved to Denton, Texas, she read about a black community that was destroyed to make room for a park. Myers wondered what it was like for a child to grow up in that community, and the result was white lilacs. On a summer day, Rosalie Jefferson used to have time to enjoy the 2 gardens her grandfather keeps. She had time to think about his beautiful white lilacs and her passion for drawing, but this summer was different. The white residents of Dillon planned to build a park on the land where Rosalie's neighbors and family live, in the African-American community of Freedom Town. It means knocking down homes and destroying businesses. Despite threats from the Ku Klux Klan, some people, like Rosalie's brother, argue for action and protest. As her family and community debate how to respond, Rosalie struggles to find her own way to deal with the coming destruction.
Ben Michelson was born in Bolivia, but he eventually settled in Bozeman, Montana. In 1986, he became a full-time writer. Michelson feels writing for children and young adults is inspiring, and he likes taking readers on a journey that does not leave them where they started. To research this story that includes homeless kids, Michelson spent several weeks living among the homeless without money, wearing just a t-shirt and jeans. He says, "I had a feeling at that point what it was like to be homeless." He used this information in his book, Sparrowhawk Red. When 13-year-old Ricky Diaz discovers that his mother, whose death he thought was accidental, was actually murdered by drug dealers, he's desperate for revenge. He concocts a plan to sneak into a Mexican drug smuggling compound and steal a plane which is outfitted with a special radar detector. Ricky's disguise as a homeless kid results in his friendship with Soledad, a wily street urchin who proves to be his passport into the compound and danger.
Phyllis Reynolds Naylor listened to her parents read aloud nearly all her life. She has been writing since she was 16 years old and writes books for children and adults. Writing is her favorite activity, and she isn't happy unless she spends time every day writing. Naylor says she's having lots of fun writing a series about boys and girls and their battles. The first book in this series is The Boys Start the War. It's the Hartford Hooligans versus the Malloy Musketeers when a family of girls moves next to 4 brothers. The boys' fantasy is to make the girls so miserable they'll move out so the boys' best friends will return. But these girls, the boys call them a whopper, a weirdo, and a crazy, are equal match to any and all practical jokes. This book is called The Boys Start the War. Book 2 is The Girls Get Even.
Gary Polson has tried almost every career in existence, but he always comes back to writing. His childhood wasn't too happy. He had no friends, didn't do well in sports, and wasn't very successful in school. While in high school, he discovered the public library and read all the time. Like the character Me in Harrison Me, Paulson lived briefly in the Philippines and spent one summer on a farm with relatives. That's the story of Harrison Me. A young boy is sent to spend a summer on his aunt and uncle's farm. Uncertain at first, he finds farm life to be exciting adventure, filled with back-breaking chores, gut-busting meals, and crazy escapades with his cousin Harris, a wild, ragtag, daredevil little boy. Harris has a scheme to get into every kind of conceivable trouble, and the two of them manage to find lots of trouble and lots of fun.
Born in Walla Walla, Washington, Ramon Royal Ross is a professor at San Diego State University. He says that for him, writing moves slowly, and he'd rather build a house than write any day. It took Ross a lot of days to write Harper and Moon. As far back as Harper could remember, there was Moon, 4, maybe 5 years older than himself, Moon, who carried with him some special magic so that he could transform scraps of lumber into a graceful ship and whistle birds down out of the air. But after Moon goes away as a soldier in World War II, Harper makes a terrible discovery, leading to winter and spring of hard questions about Moon and about himself.
Well, those are the 12 nominated books. At the end of this videotape, your librarian or teacher will show you where the Young Reader's Choice books are shelved in your library or classroom and answer your questions. Be sure to read, and don't forget to vote. You're watching the 1996 Young Reader's Choice Award book preview for the Senior Division.
Most readers of mysteries recognize Lois Duncan as a favorite author of fiction. However, her book Who Killed My Daughter is the true story of a mother's determination to make sense of her daughter's murder. Using psychic readings, police transcripts, taped telephone conversations, photographs, and other evidence, Duncan creates a scary and fascinating investigative file in an effort to solve this horrible crime. Who Killed My Daughter was the favorite of the Senior Division voters for the 1995 Young Reader's Choice Senior Division Award. Lois Duncan is a popular mystery writer for young adults, and her books frequently feature supernatural events. Strangely enough, many incidents written about in Duncan's earlier novels have come to pass in her real life. Her book, Don't Look Behind You, featured a teenage girl named April, who was based on one of Duncan's daughters, Caitlin. In the book, April was chased by a hitman in a Camaro. Shortly after the book was published, Caitlin was shot to death by a hitman in a Camaro. Duncan's attempt to find her daughter's murderer prompted her to write Who Killed My Daughter?
The Young Reader's Choice Award is the oldest children's choice award in the United States, and it is the only regional award chosen by children of 2 countries. Each year, students in grades 4th through 8th and 9th through 12th in Alaska, British Columbia, and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book.
The favorite senior division book for 1995 was the riveting Who Killed My Daughter by Lois Duncan, the first nonfiction book to ever win a YRCA award.
Who will win in 1996? You choose a winner. All 9th through 12th graders who have read or listened to at least 2 of the nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 5 books you want to read, here's a brief description of each.
Chris Crutcher grew up in a small logging town in northern Idaho. In spite of his bookish parents, Crutcher read only 1 book throughout 4 years of high school. That book was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and its treatment of justice in real life greatly influenced Crutcher's life. A swimmer, former teacher, and family therapist, Crutcher now lives in Spokane, Washington. Most of his writing is based on teen problems he encountered in his counseling career. He writes about connections and the true nature of courage. Courage is the major theme in Staying Fat for Sarah Burns. Eric Calhoun, Moby to his friends, is a good swimmer and a great friend. Because he and Sarah Burns share what they call their terminal uglies, they've been close friends since childhood. Eric is fat and Sarah is badly burned in a mysterious accident that happened when she was 3 years old. When the truth of Sarah Burns' horrific past finally catches up with her, she becomes nearly catatonic and is hospitalized. It is Eric's mission to help her find a way through the pain.
Peter Dickinson was born in Zambia, and when he was 7, his parents returned to England and he grew up there. He says he has always been fascinated with old things, no matter how ugly. Dickinson writes before researching, does the research, then rewrites. He does this to write from his own confidence and experience, rather than the facts. There are plenty of interesting experiences and facts in A Bone from a Dry Sea. An alternative and controversial theory of human evolution is a major theme in this book about 2 girls in different times, the past and the present. Lee is a prehistoric ape-like creature and more intellectually curious than the others in her tribe. The girl in modern times is Vinnie. She's on a vacation and visiting her father, a well-respected paleontologist on an archaeological dig in Africa. Vinnie accidentally discovers an artifact, which may have been created by Lee, and might be a possible missing link in the chain of human evolution.
Born in Hawaii and now living in Boston and New Hampshire, Lois Lowry has been freelance writing for over 20 years. Many ideas for her books came from childhood memories and her own life. She says her days are spent happily reading and writing. When Lowry created the world for The Giver, she remembered the importance of passing down memories. The photograph of the man on the cover was taken by Lowry in 1979. She says that while interviewing him, she realized that he saw things she did not, and that aspect of someone giving her color went into the writing of the Newbery Award-winning book, The Giver. Jonas is a boy who inhabits a seemingly ideal world, a world without conflict, poverty, unemployment, divorce, injustice, or inequality. It is a time in which family values are paramount. Teenage rebellion is unheard of, and even good manners are a way of life. But Jonas has an unusual ability to see beyond the ordinary in this futuristic society. The Council of Elders have noticed and appointed Jonas to become the receiver of memory, the most highly honored position in the community. His selection leads him to an unnamed man, the man called only the Giver. And Jonas begins to sense the dark secrets that underlie the fragile perfection of his world.
Kyoko Mori was born in Japan and moved to the United States when she was 16. She is an associate professor of English at a college in Wisconsin. Her poetry and short stories have won numerous awards. Based on and inspired by events in the lives of people Mori knows, Shizuko's Daughter started out as a collection of short stories. Shizuko Okuda and her daughter Yuki have always been close, but Shizuko's husband was never home. Bitterly unhappy, Shizuko decided that she could only offer her daughter a better future by getting out of the way. Yuki is 12 when her mother commits suicide. Afterwards, she will have to live with a distant, silent father and an unfeeling stepmother. Outspoken and smart, Yuki keeps to herself while focusing on her freedom. Japanese culture dictates Yuki's public actions and private decisions, but not her talents or her feelings.
Virginia Ewer Wolf feels most at home among the mountains, rivers, and forests of the Northwest. As a child, she wanted to be a writer, but she didn't begin to write until she was nearly 40. She's been a teacher for nearly 30 years, teaching a lot of high school English. Wolf remembers her time as a young mother when she had to put her babies in an old plastic high chair from the Salvation Army. She wrote about a world that pretends to be sensitive to young mothers but behaves with appalling indifference in her book, Make Lemonade. Jolly is 17. She can't really spell. She doesn't have much of a job, and she has 2 little kids from 2 different absent fathers. Jolly knows she can't cope with Jillian and Jeremy all by herself, so she posts an ad on the school bulletin board, "Babysitter needed bad." 14-year-old Levon takes the job and becomes involved with the struggling lives of Jolly and her 2 children. It's Levon's ambition and sensible influence that makes Jolly begin the long, slow process of turning the lemons in her life into lemonade.
Those are the 5 nominated books. At the end of this videotape, your librarian or teacher will show you where the Young Reader's Choice books are shelved in your library or classroom and answer any of your questions. Be sure to read, and don't forget to vote.